The bus hums low as it sinks deeper into the sea. Its lights flicker gently, not bright enough to wake the ocean, just enough to guide the way. Outside the window, the blue fades into a dark indigo, and then deeper still, into a quiet shadow where the surface world begins to disappear. SpongeBob sits near the window, hands resting softly on his lap, eyes wide with that familiar mix of curiosity and wonder. He doesn't move much, only the slow rhythm of his breathing, the quiet rise and fall of his chest. Around him, the bus is nearly empty. Just a few sleepy travelers sitting apart, their faces turned toward the dark glass. No one speaks. No one needs to. The driver, a tall anglerfish with drooping eyelids, hums to himself a slow, steady tune that sounds almost like the ocean itself sighing. The headlights cut through the darkness in long beams, illuminating trails of drifting sand and the occasional sea jelly pulsing by. Every few moments, a distant glow flickers, maybe a signpost, maybe a fish, and then fades again, swallowed by the deep. The road down to rock bottom is endless, winding, and strangely soft. There's no harsh movement, no jolt, just the slow, gliding descent through layers of stillness. The world above feels far away now. Even SpongeBob's thoughts seem to float slower here, like bubbles that don't rush to the surface. He presses his face to the window, watching as the last traces of Bikini Bottom's light vanish behind him. The familiar yellows and pinks of coral houses are gone now, replaced by quiet grays and shadowy blues. The water thickens. It feels almost velvety, heavy with sleep. In the faint reflection of the glass, SpongeBob sees himself tired but smiling. There's something oddly comforting about the journey, even though he doesn't quite understand where it leads. Maybe it's the hum of the engine, or the soft vibration beneath his seat, or the gentle sway of the bus like a cradle in the tide. It feels safe somehow, safe and slow. Outside, the signs begin to change, no longer sharp or colorful, but glowing faintly in the dark. Each one flickers with strange symbols, softly pulsing as if alive. SpongeBob squints, trying to read them, but the words seem to rearrange themselves before he can make sense of them. One moment they say next stop, the next something else entirely. But he doesn't mind. The light is pretty and the mystery is calm. A jellyfish floats past the window, glowing blue-white in the dim water. For a moment, its body presses close to the glass, then drifts upward, vanishing into the dark ceiling of the deep. SpongeBob watches it until it's gone, then turns his gaze downward again. The road curves softly left, then right, winding like a dream. He glances at the small clock above the driver's seat. The hands don't seem to move. Maybe they are. Maybe time simply works differently down here. The thought makes him smile. There's something peaceful about the idea that in rock bottom, time might just decide to rest too. A soft announcement echoes from the front of the bus, the driver's voice calm and distant. Approaching rock bottom. The words drift through the quiet air like bubbles. No one reacts. SpongeBob takes a deep breath, his eyes growing heavy. The hum of the bus lulls him deeper into thought. He feels like he's descending not just through water, but through dreams layer after layer, until everything feels far away and beautifully slow. He looks outside once more. The darkness is no longer empty. Faint lights begin to appear, thin, blinking dots spread out across the deep. They look like stars, but underwater, little pockets of life scattered through the silence. Some flicker pink, others green, and one far in the distance shines steadily gold. The bus curves again. The windows glow faintly as the road bends downward one last time. SpongeBob feels the pressure in the water change, a soft tightening in his chest. Not uncomfortable, just deep. The world feels heavier here, denser, but in a soothing way, like being wrapped in a blanket made of shadow. He smiles to himself, thinking, maybe rock bottom isn't scary after all. Maybe it's just asleep. The road continues spiraling downward, curling like a ribbon through the dark. The bus lights flicker gently with every turn, brushing the rock walls in hues of pale blue and faint green. SpongeBob can see tiny creatures clinging to the side, slow-moving, luminescent worms and soft coral patches that open and close like breathing lungs. The soundscape of the ocean has changed too. It's no longer the cheerful swish and chatter of Bikini Bottom. Down here, it's deeper, slower. The only constant is the steady hum of the bus engine, soft enough to be mistaken for the ocean's heartbeat. Each vibration seeps through the seats, making the journey feel like a lullaby on wheels. SpongeBob leans his head against the window. The glass is cool, almost comforting. Trails of bubbles drift upward, and each one catches the light before fading into the dark ceiling above, and the light outside is thin and quiet, no real color, just gradients of shadow. He watches it move, hypnotized by how calm everything feels. He closes his eyes for a moment. Behind them, he sees faint flashes of memory, Krusty Krab's sizzling grill, Patrick's laughter echoing across jellyfish fields, Squidward's clarinet drifting from next door. But those sounds feel far away now, replaced by a silence that doesn't ask for anything, a silence that invites him to rest. The bus makes another turn. The faint beam of the headlights catches a sign half buried in sand. It reads, "You are entering rock bottom." The letters glow faintly, as if painted with sleep. Tiny fish rest along the bottom of the sign, using it like a pillow. SpongeBob smiles softly. Even the signs down here seem to be dreaming. He straightens up, peering ahead. The road now stretches into what looks like an open cavern, wide, shadowy, endless. The driver adjusts a small lever on the panel, and the lights inside the bus dim even further. The anglerfish hums again, this time lower, slower. SpongeBob whispers to himself, almost there. The descent feels eternal, but not in a bad way. It's like time has been slowed for his sake, letting him breathe between thoughts. He traces shapes on the fogged window with one finger. Spirals, bubbles, stars. Each one fades as quickly as he draws it. The ocean seems to take them gently, holding them in the current for a moment before letting go. Outside, something drifts past a school of transparent fish, moving in perfect formation. Their scales shimmer softly in the darkness, glowing for just a moment, before vanishing like falling stars. SpongeBob's eyes widen. He doesn't move, afraid that even breathing might break the fragile silence. There's a comfort here, in this strange depth. The world above the chatter, the work, the bright coral streets, all of it feels distant now, softened by the weight of the water. He feels lighter and heavier at the same time, as if the deep has taken everything noisy from him and replaced it with peace. A soft ding echoes from the front of the bus. One of the passengers, a snail wearing a small shell hat, slides off its seat and slowly moves toward the door. SpongeBob watches as it leaves when the bus stops briefly at a dimly glowing station. The station's floor is lined with shells that shimmer faintly, marking the path like gentle lanterns. When the doors close again, the bus sighs. It feels alive, not like a machine, but like a creature that knows the way home. Minutes drift by, maybe hours. It's hard to tell. Time here doesn't seem to follow rules. The clock above the driver still shows the same minute as before, but SpongeBob doesn't mind. He lets himself sink into the rhythm, the hum, the soft light, the steady sway. He glances back at the seats behind him. Most are empty now. Just one small jellyfish floats near the ceiling, its tentacles softly glowing. It pulses in and out like it's breathing with him. SpongeBob watches it until his eyes grow heavier. For the first time in a long while, he feels himself completely still. The bus takes one last downward curve. The lights outside shift the deep blue now, giving way to a softer violet. Somewhere far below, faint golden dots begin to appear. Not many, just enough to form a quiet pattern, like sleepy constellations in the sea. SpongeBob presses his palm to the glass. The warmth of his hand fogs the window. Almost there, he whispers again, but his voice is barely more than a breath. The world outside sways like a slow-moving dream. The deeper he goes, the calmer he feels. The bus creaks softly, the sound gentle, old, familiar. It's like the sea itself is carrying them now, careful not to wake anyone inside. Rock bottom is still out of sight, but SpongeBob can sense it, a calm, resting pulse waiting in the depths below. The road finally straightens out. The downward slope fades into a long, flat stretch that glows faintly from below, as if the sand itself has trapped a layer of starlight. The bus slows to a crawl. SpongeBob leans closer to the window, eyes wide but calm, and there it is. Rock bottom. It's quieter than he imagined. A place built from shadows and echoes, where the light seems to drift instead of shine. Tiny lamps made from glowing coral sway gently in the water current, each one giving off a soft hum, like they're sighing in their sleep. The buildings rise tall but narrow, uneven, like teeth on an old comb. Their edges blur in the dimness, shaped by time and the hush of the sea. SpongeBob's reflection looks back at him in the glass. His eyes seem softer, slower, almost as though he's already become part of this quiet world. He notices that even his breathing matches the rhythm of the bus engine, now slow, steady, peaceful. The bus hisses to a stop. A pale light washes over the floor as the doors open. A cool wave drifts in, carrying the faint scent of wet stone and deep-sea moss. It smells like the quiet parts of the ocean, untouched, timeless. He hesitates for a moment, clutching his bag, then steps out. His feet sink gently into the sandy floor. It's soft and cold, dotted with small glowing shells that twinkle underfoot. The bus behind him lets out a deep, tired hum before pulling away, its lights fading into the distance. Soon it's gone, swallowed by the deep blue fog. SpongeBob looks around. Everything feels dreamlike. The signs are written in looping, unfamiliar letters, glowing faintly in mismatched colors. A tall post stands near the stop, creaking slightly as it moves with the current. Attached to it is a strange jellyfish-like lantern that blinks every few seconds, its light pulsating like a slow heartbeat. He squints at the sign, trying to make sense of it, but the letters seem to rearrange themselves the longer he stares. A small chuckle escapes him, not because it's funny, but because it feels comforting in a strange way, like the town isn't asking him to understand it, only to feel it. Behind him, the cavern stretches upward into darkness. The surface world is gone. Ahead, rock bottom lies like a half-forgotten dream, sleepy, still, endless. A faint hum echoes from somewhere deep within the streets. It might be a current, or the low whisper of some distant creature. The sound folds into the rhythm of the place, blending with the soft flicker of lights. SpongeBob closes his eyes and listens. For a moment, he feels weightless. He begins to walk slowly, his steps leaving soft trails in the sand that glow for a few seconds before fading. Each footstep feels like it's being swallowed by the quiet. Around him, The homes are shaped like shells and coral ridges, tilted slightly as if the whole town is gently leaning in one direction toward sleep. He passes a window where the faint glow of a jellyfish lamp illuminates a family of small fish sleeping in hammocks. Their fins move slightly with each breath, rippling like silk ribbons. SpongeBob smiles. There's something peaceful about seeing life still and resting, untouched by the world above. He continues down a narrow path. The walls here are rough stone, speckled with patches of glowing algae that give off a dull blue shimmer. His shadow stretches ahead of him, long and faint. The water feels heavier here, thicker somehow, but not in an unpleasant way. It's like a blanket, cool, soft, holding him close. He pauses at a corner. In the distance, a faint rhythmic tapping echoes a slow thunk-thunk, as if someone is carving or fixing something. The sound drifts closer, echoing off the walls before fading again. It doesn't feel alarming. It feels familiar, almost like the slow heartbeat of the town itself. SpongeBob adjusts his tie, takes a deep breath, and whispers softly, "Well, here I am." His voice barely carries, caught and cushioned by the thick water around him. It sounds like it's coming from far away, like a memory whispered back to him. He lets it go. Nearby, a small jellyfish floats past. Its glow casts a soft halo on SpongeBob's face. He watches it drift upward until it disappears into the haze. There's no rush to move, no reason to hurry. Everything here moves at the pace of dreams. He sits down on a small rock near the path. The surface is smooth and cool, and he can feel the vibrations of the deep ocean, slow and steady. He sets his bag beside him and looks up. The cavern ceiling shimmers faintly, as though reflecting the faint lights of distant creatures swimming high above. The deep hum returns low, endless, soothing. For a long time, SpongeBob doesn't move. He just sits there, breathing slowly, listening to the song of rock bottom. He doesn't know where to go next, and for now, that's perfectly fine. The quiet feels like company. The deep feels like a dream. And the descent feels like coming home. The water feels deeper now, heavier, quieter, as if the ocean itself is holding its breath. SpongeBob sits still on the rock, his small frame outlined by the faint shimmer of the glowing sand below. The silence here isn't empty. It's full of tiny sounds if you listen close enough. The distant creak of coral branches, the sleepy hum of electric jellyfish drifting somewhere far off, the whisper of the current brushing past his face like the soft edge of a dream. He lowers his gaze and traces a small circle in the sand with his finger. The glowing grains light up briefly, then fade, leaving only a faint afterglow like a memory fading at dawn. It reminds him of jellyfishing days with Patrick, of laughter bubbling up under the sun. For a moment, it feels like the light of those memories reaches even this far below. He lets out a slow sigh. The bubbles drift upward, spinning lazily before melting into the water above. "It's so quiet here," he murmurs, "almost like the ocean is asleep." And in a way, it is. The mist hangs low tonight, soft, slow, and silver blue, curling through the narrow streets like drifting breath. SpongeBob takes his first few steps deeper into rock bottom, and the world feels weightless, suspended in a dream. The air glows faintly as though it remembers daylight but cannot quite recall what sunlight looks like. The pale mist hugs the buildings, and everything seems wrapped in quiet. Faint lights flicker behind windows, not bright, not cold, just gentle glimmers like memories that refuse to fade. The sign above a small corner shop reads, Coral Cafe, its letters softly glowing a faded pink. Inside, chairs rest upside down on tables. Napkins, folded neatly, resemble the wings of tiny sea butterflies asleep in still water. SpongeBob presses his hand against the cool glass of the window. His reflection looks back at him, softened by the fog, a little distorted, like a face seen through a dream. He smiles faintly. For a moment, it feels as though his reflection is another version of him, one that belongs to this quiet town. The hum returns. It's not close, not far, somewhere in between, steady and patient. A deep, low vibration that moves through the sand beneath his feet, through the coral walls, through the mist itself. It isn't frightening, it's almost soothing, like the heartbeat of the sea. Every few seconds it fades, then returns like waves breathing in and out. He starts walking again, his shoes making soft sounds on the wet ground. Each step leaves a faint shimmer that vanishes slowly, the light sinking back into the sand. Street lamps, tall, thin, and covered in tiny barnacles, sway gently with the water's current. Their bulbs pulse with dim gold light, one after another, like a sleepy rhythm. The deeper he goes, the stranger the shapes become. Some houses lean sideways, like they're bowing in slumber. Others are perfectly upright, but covered in glowing moss that hums quietly, responding to the unseen current of sound. Even the shadows seem to breathe, shifting slowly with the water's movement, stretching long and soft across the empty streets. SpongeBob looks up. Above him, the mist thickens, layers of blue and lilac swirling together like underwater clouds. Beyond them, he thinks he sees faint outlines of giant kelp strands bending gracefully in the distant dark. Their leaves ripple in the current, forming shapes that almost look like faces for a moment before fading again. He whispers softly, "Hello?" His voice floats away, thin and weightless, barely disturbing the mist. No one answers, but the quiet hum deepens slightly, a low tone that seems to acknowledge him in return. There's comfort in this silence, a kind of peace that comes from not needing to understand everything. He passes another window. This one belongs to a place called the Deep Current Diner. The neon sign still hums faintly, its letters flickering every few seconds. Inside, everything is perfectly arranged mugs stacked, napkins in neat rolls, a single slice of sea pie resting untouched under a glass dome. It looks like the diner simply paused one day, frozen in the middle of a memory. SpongeBob watches the flicker of the sign reflect in the glass dome, the light catching the curve of the pie, the metal rim of a coffee pot, the soft glint of water droplets clinging to the counter. The stillness feels endless, but not lonely. It feels preserved. He presses his face a little closer to the window, fogging it slightly with his breath. "You must have served a lot of Krabby Patties," he says gently, as if the empty diner can hear him. "Or maybe something even better." The glass fogs, then clears, and for a moment he imagines he sees movement inside a shape, faint and flickering, like someone wiping a counter. But when he blinks, the room is still again. He doesn't feel scared. He just feels small, like he's inside a dream someone forgot to wake up from. As he walks away, the hum grows softer again, distant, like the ocean settling back into its rhythm. The mist curls around him as though guiding him forward. He follows the faint lights along the street, some white, some green, some glowing like amber pearls. They lead him past shuttered doors, half-open windows, and a cracked mirror that catches his reflection. From a strange angle, he almost looks like he's walking beside himself. And then, from somewhere high above, A slow drift of bubbles falls through the mist, glowing faintly, floating down like tiny lanterns in the night. They burst softly against the ground, leaving behind ripples of light that fade within seconds. SpongeBob watches, smiling quietly. He feels the peace of it, the patience of the deep. It's as if rock bottom itself is whispering, "You're safe here. Just walk. Just listen." The street curves gently ahead, the mist glowing brighter in one direction. He decides to follow. The road bends softly, and SpongeBob follows its curve like a drifting leaf in the current. The pale glow grows stronger here, not from lamps or windows, but from the ground itself. Tiny specks of bioluminescence flicker between the grains of sand, spreading in delicate constellations beneath his feet. Oh, when he steps, the light ripples outward in soft waves, fading slowly, as though the ocean floor is breathing in response to his movements. He pauses to watch. Every step feels like writing on the surface of a dream, glowing words that vanish before they can be read. He crouches down, brushing his hand over the shimmering sand. It feels warm, alive in a quiet way, humming faintly like distant music. A soft current passes through, stirring the mist. It curls around him, wrapping him in thin ribbons of blue and silver. He closes his eyes, letting it touch his face. The current carries faint sounds, a hum, a laugh, a whisper, or maybe those are just echoes from his mind. The deeper he goes, the more the mist seems to move with intention, guiding him. It shifts aside just enough to reveal what lies ahead. Faint outlines of buildings half buried in coral, doors slightly ajar, signs swinging gently in the water. Everything looks paused between sleep and waking, as if rock bottom is dreaming itself alive. SpongeBob notices something glowing near the base of an old street post. He kneels down and finds a tiny sea snail curled beneath it, its shell emitting a soft amber light. The snail's eyes are closed, and bubbles drift slowly from its mouth like little sighs. He smiles and whispers, "Sleep tight, little buddy." The snail's glow brightens faintly for a moment, and then dims again, returning to its slow rhythm. SpongeBob stands and looks down the street. A faint light flickers at the far end, purple this time, calm and steady, almost like a heartbeat waiting for him to follow. He starts walking again. The fog grows denser for a moment, but he can still see the shapes of the walls and doorways passing by on either side. Some walls are covered in old posters, advertisements for bubble bus tours and rock bottom rest stop. Their ink faded and curling at the edges. Others are blank, except for the faint trails left by passing jellyfish. He feels something shift in the water, not sound, not touch, but a kind of awareness. The city seems to be watching him, not in a fearful way, but in recognition, as though it remembers every visitor who ever wandered through its quiet streets. He stops by another window. Inside, a small shop glows with soft turquoise light. A cracked sign above the counter reads, "Driftwood Gifts." Shelves line the walls, filled with glass bottles, coral trinkets, and little jars of glowing sand. Dust floats inside the water like golden snow. Behind the counter, a mannequin, made of coral, sits perfectly still, its smile frozen but kind. SpongeBob presses his hand against the glass again, and for a heartbeat, he swears he sees the mannequin move just a tilt of the head, almost imperceptible. He blinks, and everything is still again. The reflection of his face overlaps with the mannequins in the window, and it looks like two versions of the same dream staring at one another. The mist thins slightly now. Above him, Faint outlines of sea cliffs rise in the distance, their edges glowing like candlelight through smoke. The hum returns, deeper, softer, almost melodic this time. He realizes it's coming from the cliffs, or perhaps from something within them. He pauses in the middle of the street, letting the hum surround him. The vibrations flow gently through his body, through the sand beneath his feet, through every corner of rock bottom. It's not a song exactly, it's more like the ocean remembering. For a long moment he stands completely still, eyes half closed, listening. Each pulse of sound carries warmth, a sense of belonging, of home. It feels ancient, older than time, and yet it knows him. It recognizes him. The bubbles drifting through the mist begin to move with the rhythm, floating upward in patterns, spiraling slowly around him like glowing dust. The streetlights flicker in harmony, and even the reflection in the window seems to pulse softly in time with the hum. SpongeBob whispers into the mist, "You're alive, aren't you?" The sound fades, and then a gentle echo returns, not in words, but in feeling. A quiet yes, carried by the hum. He smiles faintly. There's no fear here. Only wonder, the kind that feels like peace. He keeps walking, following the purple glow that now shifts like a moving star ahead of him. As he nears the curve of the next street, the mist parts just enough to reveal something tall and faintly shining, a structure rising from the sand like a pillar of glass. It hums softly, its surface covered in shifting light. SpongeBob steps closer, the glow reflecting across his face like waterlight. Whatever this place is, it feels sacred, like the center of Rock Bottom's dream. SpongeBob approaches the tall, glass-like pillar rising in the center of Rock Bottom's mist. It hums softly, not with mechanical energy, but with something gentler, an underwater heartbeat. The surface ripples faintly, as though the light within is liquid, always moving, always alive. He reaches out, placing one small hand against the cool surface. The pillar doesn't resist his touch. It feels warm, like sunlight filtered through deep water. Beneath his palm, the glow shifts and swirls, rearranging into soft patterned spirals, waves, the faint shapes of bubbles. For a second, he sees something reflected inside, his own face, smiling faintly back at him, surrounded by rippling light. The hum deepens. It vibrates through the sand and into his legs, through his chest, into the tiny corners of his mind. And suddenly, the world feels like it's breathing with him, every exhale mirrored by the slow pulse of the pillar. Around him, the mist starts to move differently now, not random or drifting, but circular. It gathers in a slow spiral around the pillar, wrapping it in ribbons of silver fog. The buildings nearby fade behind the haze, their outlines softening until only the lights remain dim golds, pale blues, and the faint pink of sleeping coral. SpongeBob steps back a little to look up at it all. The pillar seems taller now, stretching far beyond the rooftops, vanishing into the upper darkness. For the first time, he notices faint carvings along its base, ancient symbols, maybe letters, etched so faintly that they shimmer only when the light bends across them. They look like they've been there for ages, waiting for someone who would listen rather than talk. He crouches again, brushing the sand away from the lowest edge. Among the markings, he spots a shape that looks familiar, a spiral shell, the kind Gary leaves trails with when he crawls across the counter. It makes him smile. Even here, in a place that feels forgotten by time, there's something soft, something home-like. He sits down in the sand and looks around. The street is empty except for the quiet swirl of fog. In the far distance, a faint melody drifts through the water. Sounds like a lullaby, but not one sung for him. It's older, deeper. A song for the city itself, the way the tide sings to the shore. He listens. The sound mingles with the hum, wrapping around him in warmth. Somewhere above, a faint glow moves through the mist. Maybe a passing jellyfish. Maybe just light finding its way home. The thought makes him feel small, but not lonely. He whispers softly, "You must see a lot of things down here." The pillar glows a little brighter in answer, as though it heard him. He chuckles quietly, bubbles escaping his mouth like laughter wrapped in air. "Yeah, I thought so." The ground hums again, this time with a deeper resonance, and he feels something shift inside him. Not fear, not confusion, just a sense of being seen. Oh, it's as if rock bottom itself has accepted him for the night. He takes a slow breath, watching the bubbles float up and vanish into the haze. The current around him moves more gently now, almost rocking him where he sits. The edges of his vision blur, the mist softening everything like the closing of tired eyes. The lights of the shop windows flicker once, twice, then settle into a constant rhythmic glow like the city's own version of breathing. The sound that fills the streets isn't silence anymore. It's peace, low and deep and endless. SpongeBob lies back against the soft sand, his head resting just near the pillar's base. He stares up at the glowing mist above him, where the faint outlines of kelp drift lazily across the dark water. Each leaf catches the pillar's glow, reflecting it like tiny mirrors. The whole sky above rock bottom looks alive, a slow-motion galaxy beneath the sea. He reaches up, pretending to touch one of the drifting lights. It feels close enough to hold, but it's only light, always moving, never still. He thinks of his friends, of home, of Patrick's laughter echoing off jellyfish fields, of Gary's sleepy purrs, of the smell of crabby patties sizzling on the grill. The memories blend into the hum, and for a brief, wonderful moment everything overlaps. The ocean, the light, the sound, the warmth of living. The pillar glows brighter once more, just enough to cast his silhouette onto the sand. In the soft reflection, SpongeBob's eyes look peaceful, half-closed, full of quiet wonder. He whispers again, "Thank you." It's not clear who he's thanking, the pillar, the mist, the city itself, but it doesn't matter. The light answers with one final gentle pulse, and the mist begins to settle again. The glow fades to a dim golden blue. The hum softens into near silence. And as SpongeBob sits there, eyes heavy with calm, the city returns to its quiet rhythm, eternal, slow, and kind. A few last bubbles rise from the sand beside him, drifting upward like small dreams escaping to the surface. He watches them until they vanish into the mist. Then he stands, dusting the sand from his clothes, and looks back at the glowing pillar one last time. It no longer feels strange or haunting, just peaceful, like a heartbeat hidden deep beneath the sea. He smiles, his voice a whisper. "Good night, rock bottom." And with that, he turns down the next street, the mist curling softly around his steps as if tucking him gently onward into the next dream. The mist had grown softer now, not gone, but gentler, like it no longer wanted to hide things from him. SpongeBob walks slowly down the winding coral street, his footsteps stirring tiny clouds of silt that rose and shimmered in the pillar's faint light behind him. For a while there was only the hush of water, the distant hum, and the whisper of currents sliding through the empty alleys. Then through the haze, something shifted, a faint flicker, the ripple of a shadow gliding past a cracked window. He froze, not in fear, but in curiosity. The shape moved again, this time closer. It wasn't large, just a soft, wavering outline that shimmered like light through a bubble. Slowly it came into focus. A small creature with fins shaped like folded ribbons, a round head, and two large, glimmering eyes. Its gaze wasn't sharp or wary, only curious, mirroring his own. It tilted its head, and for a moment both simply looked at one another, two beings sharing the same quiet wonder in a place that felt halfway between dream and sleep. SpongeBob gave a small wave. The creature blinked, then lifted one delicate fin and waved back just as shyly. The gesture filled the space between them with warmth, the kind that doesn't need words to be understood. Behind it, more shapes began to appear in the mist silhouettes at first, then faces faintly lit by the city's glow. They were the locals of Rock Bottom. Each moved differently, some gliding smoothly as if carried by invisible currents, others walking slowly across the sand, their movements soft and deliberate. Their colors were muted, dusky blues, deep violets, and pale greens that faded into the water around them. One of them carried a small lantern made from a glowing shell. The light it gave off was gentle, like moonlight caught in a tide pool. As they passed, the glow brushed against SpongeBob's face, warming him like a soft greeting. No one spoke loudly here. Their voices, when they came, were muffled and low, like songs heard through water. A few hummed softly to themselves, a melody that seemed to belong to Rock Bottom itself. The notes floated through the mist and wrapped around SpongeBob like a lullaby made of bubbles. He found himself relaxing into the rhythm of it. Each sound, each hum, each movement felt unhurried, patient, kind. One of the locals, a tall figure with translucent fins like the petals of a jellyfish, drifted closer. They didn't speak, but held out a small shell, glowing faintly blue. SpongeBob accepted it carefully, cupping it in his hands. The shell pulsed with gentle light, dimming and brightening like a tiny heartbeat. When he looked up again, the jellyfish-like local was already gliding away, their movements trailing soft strands of light that faded behind them. "Thank you," SpongeBob whispered, though he wasn't sure they could hear him. He turned the shell over in his hands. Inside, faint patterns rippled, maybe reflections, maybe something more. The glow soothed him. Its rhythm matched the calm thump of the pillar he'd touched earlier. More residents appeared now, peeking from behind curved windows, walking along coral paths, humming to each other in the stillness. Some nodded to him as they passed. Others simply smiled, a slow, serene smile that said, "You're welcome here." It was a strange kind of comfort, the kind that didn't need explanations. The city wasn't empty, after all. It was alive, just quiet. SpongeBob felt the realization bloom gently inside him. Not all strange places are lonely. Some are simply peaceful, their silence not cold, but kind. A small group of locals gathered near an old bench carved from coral. One of them patted the space beside them, inviting him to sit. He hesitated, only for a moment, before joining them. They didn't talk, but they shared small gestures, pointing out glowing plankton drifting by, tracing little shapes in the sand, laughing softly when a bubble escaped someone's mouth and floated upward, wobbling like a sleepy balloon. Time moved differently here. Minutes didn't feel like minutes. It was as if Rock Bottom ran on the slow rhythm of waves, the kind that lull you without realizing. The same gentle tune played again, that watery lullaby. This time, SpongeBob could feel it more clearly. It wasn't coming from one voice, but many of the locals hum in together, weaving sound into calmness. He closed his eyes for a moment, just listening. The vibrations of their song rippled through the water, through the sand beneath him, through his chest. When he opened his eyes again, the locals were looking at him with the softest expressions, not smiling wide, not laughing, just there, sharing space in quiet understanding. SpongeBob smiled back. He didn't need to speak their language. The quiet between them said enough. As the melody faded, one of the smaller locals, barely taller than his shoulder, handed him a small glass sphere. Inside it, tiny glowing dots floated lazily, forming patterns like stars. SpongeBob held it carefully, whispering, "It's beautiful." The little creature tilted its head, its gills fluttering gently, then tapped the sphere once. The lights inside rearranged themselves, forming a slow, spiraling swirl just like the markings on the pillar. SpongeBob watched in awe. "Oh," he breathed, his eyes wide and soft. "You know about the light, too?" The creature gave a small nod. Then, as if satisfied, it turned and drifted away into the mist, following the others. SpongeBob stood there for a moment longer, holding the glowing sphere close. The lights within pulsed slowly, syncing with the distant hum of the pillar and the song of the locals fading into the night. The mist moved around him like a gentle tide, wrapping the whole scene in calm. The strange city didn't feel strange anymore. It felt like a dream that welcomed anyone who entered with an open heart. He smiled softly and whispered to himself, "Maybe rock bottom isn't the bottom at all. Maybe it's just a place where everything slows down enough to breathe." The lights in the distance shimmered as if agreeing. And SpongeBob began walking again, slower this time, deeper into the heart of rock bottom, where the quiet seemed to grow warmer with every step. As SpongeBob drifted deeper into rock bottom, the faint glow from the locals' lanterns began to spread across the sand, painting the world in quiet blues and greens. Every flicker of light felt alive, not just illumination, but heartbeat, memory, warmth. The air, or rather, the water was thick with calm. It didn't weigh him down, though. It carried him, gently, the way a lullaby carries a dreamer. He passed a row of small coral houses built low into the rock, each with rounded windows that glowed like sleepy eyes. Curtains drifted softly behind them, woven from strands of seaweed. Some houses had little wind chimes, shells, and pebbles strung together that tinkled whenever the current passed by. SpongeBob slowed down, letting his hand trail along a wall made of smooth coral. It was cool to the touch. A small fish darted out from behind it, paused, and blinked at him curiously. "Hey there," SpongeBob whispered, smiling. The fish circled him once, then vanished into the mist again, leaving behind a swirl of silver bubbles. He laughed softly. Not loudly, not to break the peace, just a small sound of joy, and it echoed faintly, blending into the distant hum of the city. As he continued, SpongeBob noticed something new, drawings on the coral walls. They were faint but visible glowing lines etched carefully, like stories written in light. He leaned closer, squinting. They showed figures much like the locals swimming through the dark, holding little shells of light. One figure stood in the center, radiating warmth, surrounded by swirling currents. Another panel showed them all gathered around a glowing sphere, the same kind one of the locals had given him earlier. "Your history," SpongeBob whispered. "Your stories." He reached out and traced one of the glowing lines with a gentle finger. It felt warm, almost alive. A soft sound stirred behind him, a rustle, a hush of bubbles, and he turned to find one of the locals watching him. This one was older, their eyes deep and kind. fins trailing like ribbons of silk. They didn't seem surprised to see him. Instead, they swam closer, moving with the slow grace of someone who has lived many tides. In their hands, they held a woven basket filled with small, glowing stones. Each stone pulsed with faint, rhythmic light, as if breathing. The elder extended one to SpongeBob. He hesitated, then took it carefully. The stone's warmth spread through his palms and up his arms until it reached his chest. It felt like calm itself had taken form. "Thank you," SpongeBob said softly. The elder didn't answer in words. They just smiled that same peaceful smile he'd seen earlier and pointed to the walls around them. Then they placed one glowing stone into a hollow in the coral, where it joined others already resting there. A moment later, the walls shimmered new lines of light blooming across it, connecting the drawings. The glow pulsed outward, and suddenly the whole alley was filled with a serene radiance. It was like the city was breathing again. SpongeBob gasped quietly, "You keep the light alive." The elder nodded once, their expression thoughtful. Then, with slow movements, they gestured, pointing from the glowing wall to SpongeBob's hands, then to the little sphere he carried from earlier. He understood. The same light lived in all of it, the shells, the walls, even the air of Rock Bottom. It wasn't just decoration. It was memory. It was connection. The elder motioned for him to follow. Together they floated down a narrow passage where the coral thinned out, replaced by smooth stone. The light dimmed again, becoming more focused, like a line leading forward. They arrived at a small square surrounded by carved pillars much smaller than the great one SpongeBob had seen earlier. In the center, a gentle stream of bubbles rose from a crack in the ground, catching light as they ascended. The locals began to gather around the square, carrying their shell lanterns. They placed them in a circle, each one glowing in a different hue: blue, green, purple, gold. It wasn't a ceremony. It wasn't even a ritual. It was simply being together. One by one they sat or floated quietly, humming that same tune SpongeBob had heard before. No words, no rush, just sound and light moving slowly through the water. He felt his chest loosen, that deep, peaceful exhale that only happens when the world finally feels safe. He closed his eyes and let the hum pass through him. When he opened them again, he noticed a small local sitting beside him, the same shy one who had waved earlier. They offered him a little seaweed cup filled with glowing bubbles. SpongeBob smiled and accepted. The bubbles drifted upward as he tilted it slightly, glowing faintly gold before fading into the dark. "Cheers," he whispered, pretending to clink his cup against theirs. The little local giggled softly, a sound like water rippling over smooth stones. Around them, the square glowed brighter. The colors from the lanterns mixed into one another, soft gradients swirling across the sand and coral. It looked like a painting underwater, alive and breathing. He glanced around at the faces of the locals. They all looked so at peace. No fear, no noise, just gentle presence. And in that moment, SpongeBob realized something simple but deep. Maybe places like Rock Bottom weren't meant to be understood. Maybe they were meant to be felt. They were quiet corners of the world, slow, tender, sacred. He took a deep breath, letting the glowing light fill his vision until everything blurred into one gentle color. Somewhere in the stillness, he thought he heard the ocean whisper, not with words, but with feeling. "Rest. You are safe here." He smiled softly, his eyelids growing heavy. And for a little while, SpongeBob didn't move. He just sat among the gentle locals, in the heart of Rock Bottom, wrapped in calm. The glow around him pulsed once more like the heartbeat of the sea itself. Then, as the scene slowly dimmed into shadow, the local song carried him forward, guiding him deeper, towards the faint glow of the next path. The hum faded into something softer, a rhythm like waves brushing sand. SpongeBob sat still for a moment longer, surrounded by that quiet glow, the world moving in slow motion. The locals swayed with the water, their fins and tendrils fluttering like ribbons in a dream. One by one, the lanterns began to drift upward. Their glow shimmered through the mist, rising like slow fireflies toward the unseen surface. The locals didn't stop them. They simply watched, their faces peaceful, eyes reflecting the soft light. SpongeBob looked up too. For the first time, he realized how tall the cliffs of Rock Bottom really were. They reached so high that the light never quite reached the top. But even in that darkness, the lanterns created tiny stars. The shy local beside him, the small one with the seaweed cup, pointed upward and whispered something in their quiet, bubbling voice. SpongeBob couldn't understand the words, but he felt them. A sound of farewell, of gratitude. He smiled back and whispered, "Yeah, it's beautiful." The little one nodded, eyes glowing faintly gold. Then they turned toward the glowing pillars and pressed their hands to the stone. The faint hum grew again, deeper this time, echoing through the rock. SpongeBob could feel it in his chest, like the pulse of the ocean itself. He stepped closer, and as he did, the carvings on the stone walls began to shimmer once more. The lines shifted and rippled like living ink, forming new shapes. A circle, a current, a light that never fades. SpongeBob reached out and placed his hand beside the locals. The glow spread instantly, or warm and steady, for a second. Everything around him, the city, the streets, the walls, felt alive. Not just in a magical way, but in a connected way, as if all of Rock Bottom shared one slow, breathing heartbeat. He whispered, "You're not lonely down here, are you?" The local turned their head, their expression unreadable, but soft. They blinked once slow, deliberate, then smiled and shook their head. SpongeBob's heart warmed. He'd come to Rock Bottom once before by accident, lost and scared. Back then, the silence had felt heavy, but tonight, it felt like something else entirely, like the silence after a song, the moment when everything rests. He looked around at the locals, their shapes blending with the mist, their lights fading and returning like tides. "You're all just resting," he said quietly, "resting with the sea." The elder who had first given him the glowing stone drifted forward again. Their eyes gleamed softly as they gestured for him to follow. SpongeBob rose, clutching the small light close to his chest. They led him toward the far end of the square, where a passage opened beneath a curtain of kelp. Beyond it, faint trails of light shimmered like stepping stones through darkness. The elder paused, motioning toward the path and to SpongeBob's glowing stone. He understood again this was his way forward. Before he left, SpongeBob turned back toward the square. The locals were still there, floating in slow circles, their gentle hum echoing like a lullaby through the water. He wanted to say goodbye, but somehow it didn't feel needed. The moment already said everything: peace, gratitude, understanding. He smiled and waved once. The shy local waved back, their outline glowing softly against the shadows. Then SpongeBob took a deep breath, let his body float, and drifted into the kelp curtain. The strands brushed against him like soft hands, parting gently to let him pass. Beyond it, the light was dimmer, only a thin golden trail leading forward. He held up the stone the elder had given him, and it responded immediately. glowing brighter, steady and sure. The walls around him shimmered faintly in response, like they recognized the light. The deeper he went, the quieter everything became. Not an empty quiet, a warm one, heavy and full. A kind of quiet that asks you to listen. SpongeBob's mind felt light, almost sleepy. Each motion was slow and effortless, as though the water carried him rather than resisted him. He thought of the locals again, their gentle eyes, their small homes carved into coral, their music like soft rain. He whispered to himself, "It's not scary down here anymore." The golden trail beneath him pulsed once, as if answering. He smiled again, following it deeper. Soon the stone path began to curve downward, spiraling gently through the darkness. The light from his stone cast soft reflections on the walls, showing faint drawings along the way, more stories, more songs, all flowing in one direction. Down. And so he followed. Down where the hum grew stronger, where the water seemed to glow from within. The tunnel opened into a maze of light. Not bright light, soft, trembling kind, the sort that sways with water and hums in low tones. SpongeBob floated at the entrance, his arms at his sides, watching small, glowing arrows drift lazily through the current. They looked like jellyfish, but flatter, their edges blinking faint blue, their bodies shaped like little arrows. Each one pointed in a direction. And every few seconds they changed. One moment they pointed left, then upward, then spun in slow spirals until they pointed nowhere at all. SpongeBob tilted his head. He murmured softly to himself. I don't remember this part of rock bottom. The water here was thick with color blue one second, green the next. The walls pulsed faintly, carved with lines that seemed to shift when he blinked. It was like standing inside a dream, or maybe inside the heartbeat of the ocean itself. He took a step forward. The sand beneath his square shoes sank a little, soft and cool. Another arrow drifted past, glowing pink this time. It curved around him once, as if studying him, before floating off toward a corridor lined with coral lanterns. Should I follow you? SpongeBob asked it gently. Or are you just floating around? The arrow didn't answer, but a few small bubbles rose from its surface and popped, releasing faint whispers. SpongeBob leaned closer, squinting, trying to listen. You're not lost, the whisper said, soft as a sigh. Just resting. His eyes widened slightly. He looked around, half expecting to see someone behind him, but there was only silence in the quiet pulse of light on the walls. Just resting, SpongeBob repeated under his breath. That's nice. He began walking, slowly, carefully. His footsteps left tiny puffs of sand that curled and vanished behind him. The corridors here didn't make sense. One turned in on itself, another sloped upward and then down again like a dream that forgot where it was going. And yet, somehow it all felt right. The signs above him changed colors in rhythm with his steps, turquoise, lilac, pale yellow. Each time he blinked, their directions shifted again. Some pointed behind him, some ahead, and a few floated in circles as if caught in thought. Normally, SpongeBob might have panicked. He would have worried about getting home, about missing work at the Krusty Krab, about the strange stillness that filled rock bottom. But tonight he didn't. The deeper he walked, the calmer he felt. It wasn't that he knew where he was going. It was that the place didn't seem to need him to know. It just wanted him to walk. The corridors began to widen, opening into slow, swirling loops of coral and glass. The signs followed him, floating around like fireflies. When he stopped, they stopped. When he breathed, they shimmered. It was almost as if they were listening. He laughed quietly, a small, sleepy sound that rippled through the water. "Well," he said softly, "if we're all resting, maybe we can rest together." He sat down on a smooth rock that glowed faintly beneath him. The light warmed him like sunlight filtered through the ocean's skin. Around him, the glowing arrows formed a slow spiral, turning gently in the current. Their whispers came again, quiet but close this time, like thoughts half-remembered. Not lost, not late, just resting. SpongeBob smiled, eyes half-closing. "I guess the ocean needs to sleep too," he whispered. He looked upward, and through the faint mist, he saw the outlines of tall coral towers, each topped with a single floating sign. They flickered in rhythm, like constellations underwater. Every flicker made the walls shimmer, showing faint patterns, doors that opened and closed, steps that led to nowhere. It was impossible to tell what was real. But instead of confusion, there was comfort. He thought about all the times he'd tried too hard to understand things, work shifts, routines, friends' moods, the meaning of it all. Maybe sometimes the ocean didn't need him to understand. Maybe it just wanted him to drift. He took another deep breath, watching the spiral of lights slow down until they hovered still. In that perfect stillness, the maze didn't look like a maze anymore. It looked like a heartbeat, alive, steady, pulsing quietly around him. And as SpongeBob sat there, surrounded by shimmering signs that pointed everywhere and nowhere, he began to understand what the whispers meant. He wasn't supposed to find a way out. He was supposed to pause, to let the sea breathe through him, to stop searching just for a while. He smiled softly, closing his eyes again. "I think I get it now," he whispered. "I'm not lost. I'm home for tonight." The signs pulsed once as if agreeing, and then very gently, they began to drift again, guiding him forward. The lights curved downward, rippling through the liquid air like falling stars. SpongeBob reaches out a hand, fingers brushing through the glowing trails. Each sign flickers as though alive, gentle, playful, never still. He follows one shaped like a jellyfish. Its soft light guides him past coral arches that hum quietly, like breathing. The sand beneath his feet feels lighter here, as though he's walking on the edge of sleep itself. A faint whisper glides through the water. "Turn here." He looks around. No one's there. Only a sign, shaped like an arrow, blinking slowly in blue. He tilts his head, smiles, and keeps walking. Everywhere, faint letters float in the water, glowing softly, rearranging themselves like drifting dreams. Home, rest, stay, dream a while. He doesn't feel afraid anymore. Even the strange noises that once echoed through rock bottom now sound like lullabies, long, low notes rolling through the mist. The streetlights pulse gently, syncing with his heartbeat. It feels less like a town now and more like a living memory, the kind that visits you right before you fall asleep. He stops at a crossroad where 5 glowing signs spin slowly above him, each pointing in a different direction. The words blur and shimmer, hard to read: exit, down, elsewhere, quiet, and wait. SpongeBob chuckles softly, bubbles rising from his mouth. "Well," he says to no one in particular, "I think I'll wait." He sits down on a smooth, flat rock. The glow around him shifts into a soft lavender haze. Tiny sea moths flutter near the signs, leaving trails of light behind them. Somewhere above, the surface ripples faintly, a reminder that there's still a world beyond this quiet one. But he doesn't long for it. Not yet. He watches as these signs above him begin to sway gently like sea plants in the current. The longer he looks, the more they start to form patterns, constellations of direction, maps of emotion. He can almost read them not with his eyes, but with his heart. Each one feels like a whisper from something vast and kind, telling him, "You don't need to know the way. The way will find you." And so he stays there, breathing slowly, feeling the hush of the ocean cradle him. Rock bottom no longer feels strange. It feels paused, as if the whole place is holding its breath, waiting for him to rest. Time drifts softly, unmeasured. SpongeBob doesn't know if minutes or hours have passed, only that the world around him keeps glowing, gently breathing with him. The signs above sway slower now, as though they too are growing sleepy. Each shimmer feels like a heartbeat, each flicker like a sigh. He leans back, watching how the light ripples across the ceiling of the watery scow. It dances in patterns he can't name, spirals, circles, waves that seem to write stories too old for words. Every few moments, one of the signs drifts lower, its glow dimming, whispering faintly as if telling him a secret. He listens, even when he doesn't understand. The sound is kind. A soft current passes through, cool and calm. It carries tiny shells and specks of glowing sand. They swirl around him, forming a quiet halo that makes him look almost weightless. He thinks of his friends Patrick, Squidward, Sandy, and wonders if they ever feel this kind of peace. Not excitement or laughter, but a peace that sits so deep it hums quietly inside you. One of the glowing arrows bends suddenly, pointing upward. Another flickers in the opposite direction, toward a narrow street lined with coral lamps. He tilts his head again, smiling softly. "You really can make up your mind, huh?" he says to the signs. A few bubbles escape, rising like laughter. He decides to follow the street lit with coral lamps. As he walks, the signs above follow him like fireflies, turning one by one to guide his steps. The mist grows thicker, but it's not dark, more like soft fabric being drawn around him. He can still see the faint glow of his path, enough to keep walking, slow and calm. At one corner, he passes a broken sign lying flat against the ground. It flickers weakly, repeating one word over and over: "Stay, stay, stay." SpongeBob kneels beside it, gently brushing off the sand. The light steadies, turning a warm gold. He smiles. "Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere." The sign hums once, a small, contented sound, before going still again, peaceful now, like it finally found rest. SpongeBob stands, feeling a strange warmth bloom inside him. There's something comforting about this lost place, how even broken things still shine. The alley widens into a courtyard filled with quiet pools of water. Each pool reflects a sign above it, creating soft mirror worlds that shimmer when he steps closer. He sees himself reflected, too sleepy-eyed, smiling faintly, surrounded by light. And for a moment he feels like he's looking at a dream version of himself, the kind that's not worried about where he's going, only about how gently he can keep walking. He sits by one of the pools and dips his hand in. The water is cool, rippling slowly, carrying faint reflections of the glowing signs. One ripple touches his face like a feather. Somewhere deep down, he understands rock bottom isn't a place to escape. It's a place to rest between thoughts. A quiet stop between the noise of waking life and the silence of dreams. He closes his eyes and the signs flicker once more, softly rearranging into a single, glowing message. "You're almost home." The words linger in the water. You're almost home. They ripple outward, glowing faintly before fading back into the mist. SpongeBob stares at where they were, a soft smile curling at the corners of his mouth. He doesn't question it. He doesn't need to. Somehow it feels true. He stands slowly, brushing his hand through the quiet current that moves like silk. The mist parts before him, revealing a narrow bridge made of coral and light. Each step hums gently, a low note echoing through the stillness. It's not a path of direction, more like a melody he's meant to walk through. Above him, the signs have stopped shifting. They float still and patient, as if waiting for him to pass beneath them. Their glow is no longer the sharp neon of the city. Now it's softer, candle-like, calm. Each word is blurred, unreadable, yet beautiful. He realizes it doesn't matter what they say anymore. What matters is the feeling they give. A gentle current flows along the bridge, brushing softly against his legs. Tiny glowing jellyfish drift by like lanterns carried downstream. He pauses to watch one twirl slowly in place, its bell pulsing faintly in rhythm with his breathing. Everything feels connected. His steps, the lights, the mist, the hum beneath the water. For the first time, SpongeBob isn't trying to understand the world around him. He's just part of it. He hums quietly, his voice joining the low vibrations in the water. The tune has no words, no rhythm, just a feeling. And in that simple act, the whole corridor of signs seems to shimmer brighter, as if answering him back. He closes his eyes. When he opens them again, the mist has thinned. Ahead, the bridge leads into a wide open space filled with floating signs, each drifting slowly like stars underwater. Some blink softly, others glow steady. Together they form constellations, not in the sky but in the sea. He walks beneath them, tracing their patterns with his gaze. They don't point anywhere now, they simply exist, glowing quietly. The message feels clear in its silence. You're not supposed to find a way out. You're supposed to rest here a while. SpongeBob lowers himself to the sandy floor, sitting cross-legged. He watches as the lights shift color from pale blue to soft gold to gentle pink. The ground beneath him hums faintly like a heartbeat. He presses his palm against it and whispers, "Thank you." The signs flicker once in reply, a shimmer of tiny bubbles, rising like laughter. One of them floats down close, circling around him, before dissolving into glowing dust. It brushes against his face, warm and weightless, like a goodbye. SpongeBob tilts his head back and stares into the water above, where the surface faintly reflects the moonlight from the world beyond rock bottom. He imagines home the pineapple, Gary's soft purr, Patrick's snores drifting to the sea. But for now, he's content just to breathe in this silence, to exist in this small, forgotten peace. The mist curls around him one last time, softer now, a blanket instead of a wall. The bridge behind him fades. The signs blink slower and slower until only a faint blue glow remains. The last light in the forest of rock bottom resting. And there, in the deepest part of the sea, where even sound grows tired, SpongeBob closes his eyes. The signs above whisper one final message, a voice softer than water. Home is wherever you stop running. He smiles. And in the silence, rock bottom hums its endless, gentle lullaby. The water grows quieter here, quieter than anywhere SpongeBob has ever been. Even his thoughts feel slower, softened by the thick, velvety calm that fills the deep. He drifts downward gently, carried by unseen currents that move like sighs. The last traces of the glowing signs fade above him, until there is only blue, then indigo, then darkness. And yet this darkness isn't empty. It breathes. It hums softly, like the ocean's asleep and dreaming around him. Tiny motes of light drift by, not bright, but enough to show him the outlines of the deep. Coral arches like sleeping giants, and sand ripples in slow motion, as if the sea itself is exhaling. SpongeBob lets go of all movement. His body floats, weightless and still, suspended in the water's cradle. He feels no need to swim, no urge to explore, just to rest. The rhythm of the ocean becomes his heartbeat. The darkness doesn't scare him anymore. It feels like a lullaby without words. From far away, a faint glow begins to rise, soft, golden, and pulsing like a candle beneath the waves. He turns toward it slowly, unhurried. The glow drifts closer, revealing a circle of seabed covered in smooth white sand. It looks untouched, sacred, the kind of place only seen by the sea's oldest dreams. SpongeBob lands gently on the sand, his body sinking slightly into the soft surface. The water here is warm, not hot, but comfortably so, like being wrapped in a memory. Around him, faint trails of glowing plankton spiral upward, dancing in silence. They form lazy patterns, dissolving and reappearing, painting the darkness in sleepy motion. He watches them, his eyelids growing heavier. For a long moment, he just lies there, not asleep, not awake somewhere in between. Each bubble that escapes his mouth drifts slowly upward, catching bits of light before vanishing. They look like tiny wishes, floating toward the surface. His mind begins to wander. He thinks of his friends of Patrick, who would probably be snoring right now. Of Sandy tinkering with some invention even in the middle of the night. Of Squidward pretending not to care about the stars outside his window. And of Gary curling up quietly in his shell, waiting for SpongeBob to come home. The thought doesn't ache. It soothes. He knows he'll return, but for now the sea is offering him something else. Stillness. Silence. A kind of peace he didn't realize he needed. The water moves in gentle waves above, dimly reflecting the shimmer of the deep. Every so often, a soft vibration runs through the sand, like the pulse of the earth beneath the sea. It feels alive, ancient, a heartbeat that's always been there, waiting for him to notice. He whispers, "Thank you," not knowing who he's talking to, the sea, the quiet, or himself. The words drift out as bubbles, glowing faintly before fading into the dark. And somewhere in that fading light, SpongeBob feels a response, not in words, but in warmth. He smiles and lets his eyes close fully this time. The deep accepts him gently, wrapping him in its calm, endless arms. No fear, no sound, no need to move. Only the slow, steady song of the ocean, the kind of silence that feels alive. The kelp sways above him like curtains drawn for sleep. The world dims to soft hues of blue and violet. He feels the pull of dreams, quiet and heavy. For the first time in a long while, SpongeBob is not thinking, not planning, not feeling lost. He is simply resting. The ocean deepens into silence so complete it feels almost sacred. SpongeBob lies still on the sand, his small form glowing faintly against the blue-black sea. Each breath he takes sends out a slow ripple, soft, rhythmic, like the beating of a distant drum. The current hums in reply, a low whisper echoing through the caverns and coral walls. It feels like the sea is speaking, but not in words. It speaks in warmth, in movement, in memory. And as SpongeBob's eyes flutter open halfway, he begins to see shapes forming in the glow around him. Not quite real, not quite imagined. First, the outlines of jellyfish drift past, their tendrils trailing like ribbons of glass. They move so slowly that time itself seems to stretch. Their lights pulse in unison, soft pink, pale gold, lavender turning the water into a dreamscape of colors. He watches them pass overhead, feeling their peace flow through him like a tide. Then a new shape appears in the haze, a memory made of light. Patrick. Not the real one, but a dream version smiling, floating upside down, holding a cone of melting ice cream that never drips. He waves lazily, his laughter carrying through the water in ripples. SpongeBob waves back, his own smile slow and sleepy. The image fades, leaving behind the faint scent of kelp and sea salt. Another glow follows, this time Sandy's helmet shining like a tiny moon. Inside it, she's writing formulas that drift away like bubbles, symbols dissolving into glittering dust. The bubbles rise and vanish into the dark ceiling of the deep, as if her thoughts are becoming stars. SpongeBob watches her fade too, feeling nothing but warmth. The next vision is Squidward. He stands under a soft spotlight of coral light, playing his clarinet. The notes don't sound sharp or lonely, they drift through the water like gentle sighs. Each note turns into a bubble that floats away, glowing green and blue, fading with grace. SpongeBob listens, heart full, realizing that even Squidward's music sounds peaceful down here. One by one, more memories shimmer into being Mr. Krabs counting coins that turn into seashells. Plankton, gazing at a single glowing speck of light like it's the whole universe. Gary curling up inside a spiral of bubbles that look like tiny galaxies. Every face, every sound, every small detail, all softened, all kind. The deep turns them into lullabies. SpongeBob understands now rock bottom isn't just a strange, forgotten place. It's the part of the sea that keeps the ocean's quiet dreams safe. The place where noise goes to sleep. He closes his eyes again, and the visions fade, replaced by shifting colors. Dark indigo melts into sapphire, then back again. The soft hum returns the same low note he heard earlier, but now it feels familiar, like it's part of him. The sand beneath his body feels warmer, breathing in rhythm with his own chest. He feels his thoughts slow further, until they're no longer words, just feelings, shapes, and light. He isn't SpongeBob, the fry cook, or the friend, or the explorer. He's just a spark drifting in the great blue, a small part of something infinite and kind. For a long while, nothing moves. The ocean becomes still, waiting. Then slowly, new light begins to bloom from the farthest edge of the dark. Not bright, soft, and golden, like morning before it's fully awake. The deep responds with a sigh, the kind of sound you can't hear but only feel. The current carries SpongeBob upward, lifting him gently from the seabed. His body doesn't resist. He simply floats, drifting through the layers of shadow and glow. Every ripple carries him closer to the light, not pulling him away from the deep, but returning him to it, as if both are the same. He opens his eyes once more, barely awake. The faint shimmer of his home, far above, flickers in his mind, the pineapple, the little lamp by the window, Gary's shell glistening softly. He smiles, the expression weightless in the water. His journey through rock bottom isn't frightening anymore. It feels like a dream he needed to have. He whispers, barely a thought. Even the bottom of the sea dreams, too. And with that he drifts upward, surrounded by quiet gold light and the deep's final lullaby, a song made of patience, peace, and infinite rest. The water lightens, not all at once, but gently, like a sigh waking from a dream. Shadows dissolve into softer shapes. The darkness of rock bottom begins to lift, carrying its silence with it. Tiny beams of gold thread their way through the heavy blue, finding SpongeBob as he drifts upward. He doesn't rush. He lets the current guide him slow, weightless, serene. Below him, rock bottom fades into dim glow and mist, its quiet corners still shimmering faintly with memory. The faint hum that once surrounded him has grown warmer now, like a melody climbing toward dawn. He opens his eyes a little wider. The kelp is returning long green ribbons swaying in the new light, brushing his arm softly as he floats past. Each leaf glitters with tiny pearls of air, catching the morning rays that filter down from above. The water feels lighter here, warmer, as though the ocean itself is exhaling after a long night. SpongeBob looks around. All the strange lights of rock bottom, the upside-down signs, the sleepy windows, the whispering streets have fallen silent. But it isn't a lonely silence anymore. It's a peaceful one. The kind that means everything is right where it belongs. He passes by a school of luminescent fish, their scales flashing pale blues and pinks. They move in slow spirals, dancing like morning fog through sunlight. Each turn leaves behind a trail of glitter that vanishes almost immediately, as if the sea is painting, then erasing, each stroke in real time. SpongeBob smiles softly, tracing their movement with his eyes. They remind him of dreams, how they appear, drift, and dissolve before you can hold them. Up ahead, a familiar shape begins to form the outline of the kelp forest. It looks different now than it did when he first entered. The light slips through the leaves like strands of gold thread. Small sea stars cling to rocks, opening slowly to greet the day. Even the ocean floor has changed. What was dark and endless now glows faintly, textured with coral dust and soft patterns of sand. He feels lighter, not just in body, but in heart. The stillness of rock bottom lingers in him, not heavy but calm, like a song he can still hear faintly in the back of his mind. He realizes that maybe peace doesn't always come from brightness or sound. Sometimes it lives in the quietest corners, waiting to be noticed. A soft shape drifts by a jellyfish, glowing faint lavender. It hovers near SpongeBob for a moment, as though to accompany him the rest of the way. They float side by side in gentle silence. The jelly's tendrils catch the morning beams, scattering tiny sparkles into the water. SpongeBob's reflection glimmers across its smooth surface, two dreamers returning home. Soon, the darkness below is only a memory. He can see farther now, outlines of coral hills, the faint movement of bubbles escaping from vents, the slow current wrapping around him like silk. Every inch feels alive again, breathing, awake. The water hums with life, but it's not loud. It's the soft hum of things beginning, of clocks restarting, of tides changing direction. He glances upward. There, beyond the last curtain of kelp, lies home. The familiar glow of the surface, pale blue, fading to silver ripples gently. He can almost make out the faint shapes above, the curve of his pineapple house, the flicker of his porch light, and maybe even the faint sound of Gary's meow carried faintly through the water. For a moment he stops, hovering in the soft golden haze. He looks back down toward rock bottom. It's gone now, hidden beneath distance and dream. But in his heart he feels its pulse, that quiet rhythm, steady and kind. He whispers into the water, a thought more than a sound. Thank you." The words vanish into the tide carried gently downward. And in that instant, a faint glow flickers below as if rock bottom heard him and smiled. SpongeBob turns back toward home. He takes a slow, deep breath, bubbles rising like laughter from his chest. The jellyfish beside him pulses once, drifting ahead, leading the way toward the soft shimmer of daylight. It feels like following the edge of a dream, one that's ending gently, but will always linger somewhere deep beneath the sea dot. The sunlight grows stronger now, no longer shy, but golden and full. It seeps into the water like honey, turning everything around SpongeBob into soft glows and gentle hues. Tiny air bubbles drift upward, each one catching the light, carrying reflections of the waking ocean. For the first time since entering rock bottom, SpongeBob feels warmth on his face, the kind that hums through every pore, chasing away the cold. He rises slowly, arms stretched, as if waking from the gentlest nap. His body feels light, but his mind feels even lighter. The heaviness of confusion, the strange echoing silence, all of it, has melted into something calm and bright. He realizes how long it's been since he truly listened to stillness, not as emptiness, but as peace. Up ahead, Bikini Bottom begins to take shape. The familiar coral roads glimmer faintly, dusted with morning sand. Jellyfish drift lazily above jellyfish fields, and the faint outline of the Krusty Krab's sign can be seen flickering softly in the distance. The ocean hums with life again, seahorses trotting, bubbles rising from vents, the steady clinking of small crabs beginning their morning scurry. SpongeBob smiles, that wide, genuine smile that feels like sunshine itself. Home. He can see his pineapple house now, its spiky leaves waving faintly in the current, the little round windows glowing from the reflection of morning light. He glides closer, and with every meter, the memories of rock bottom soften, not fading away, but blending gently into his heart. A thought crosses his mind. Maybe everyone needs a rock bottom once in a while. A place where everything slows down enough for you to breathe, to listen, to remember who you are beneath the noise. A place where silence doesn't feel empty, it feels full. He lands softly outside his house, sand puffing up around his square feet. Gary is waiting by the door, blinking sleepily, letting out a long, slow meow. SpongeBob laughs quietly and bends down to pat his shell. "Hey, buddy," he whispers. "I had the strangest, calmest night." Gary blinks again, as if he already knows. Inside, the house feels familiar and warm. The faint smell of sea kelp pancakes lingers from yesterday's breakfast. SpongeBob sets his hat down, washes his face in cool coral water, and glances out the window. The ocean is glowing, steady and clear, the color of early day. He sits for a while at the edge of his bed, just breathing. The room is still, the kind of stillness that feels alive. He can still hear that deep hum from rock bottom, softer now, but eternal a rhythm beneath everything, reminding him that peace is never really far away. He closes his eyes, letting the sound blend with the slow drift of bubbles outside his window. Moments later, the Krusty Krab bell rings faintly in the distance. Mr. Krabs is awake. Squidward probably less happily, too. SpongeBob stands, tying his tie carefully, the same way he always does. But this morning, the movement feels different, slower, more deliberate, like part of a ritual of gratitude. He hums to himself, a tune without words, something he might have heard whispered in the depths of rock bottom. As he steps outside, the sunlight filters through the kelp once more, tracing golden patterns across the sand. He looks back at his home, at the endless blue stretching beyond it, and he smiles. There's no rush, no worry. Just the gentle rhythm of the sea and the quiet promise of another day. He walks toward the crusty crab, each step leaving behind tiny clouds of sand that shimmer like dust in a dream. Jellyfish float above him, their soft pulses glowing like lanterns in the morning haze. And though the world around him grows busier with every moment, the chatter of the waves, the clinking of coral cups deep inside, SpongeBob still carries that calm from rock bottom, the hush that felt like eternity, the stillness that whispered, "You're not lost, just resting." He looks toward the horizon, where the light bends into color blue, gold, and rose, swirling gently together. "Good morning, Rock Bottom," he says softly, his voice carried by the tide. "See you in my dreams." And somewhere far below, past the misty depths and winding streets, the quiet town hums once more faintly, peacefully, as if answering back. The sea stretches wide. The morning settles in. And SpongeBob walks on smiling, beneath the gentle light of a brand new day.